Sam, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me, gents.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Nice one, Sam.
So Sam, before we start talking about where you are today, tell us a bit about yourself, about your past, and
I'm from Luton originally. Well, still am. Lutonian born and bred. Grew up in and around my family and their business. Spent every sort of summer from when I was probably about 7 with my dad or with my granddad, shadowing them, learning the tools of the trade as to what they were doing at the time. Family had a haulage business originally up until 2005, and my old man was a mechanic again up until 2005. In 2005 they transitioned, family business went across to property, so started to learn the tools of the trade around that really.
what's your main trade?
So I'm a builder mainly by trade now,
Okay.
and that sort of originated from growing up around property, and I was always getting various trades in, various people involved in the business to, do this project, do that project, and I sat there and thought one day, why on earth are we paying all these other people to come in and do this? Why don't I just start to do my own thing and build it up from there? So that was where my sort of journey into building and construction started, and where I sort of really discovered my passion and my love for it from there. But I did absolutely all sorts in the lead up to that. Really tried every sort of different business venture and career path going. I was a bailiff for a little while. I was a football agent for a bit. I've worked in bars. I've worked in clubs. I've done security. Travelled like all across the world, been to various different countries and places. Before I finally sort of decided, right, it's time to be an adult and grow up and settle into a career and actually build your future up. For
anyone that don't know, how old are you? Sam?
So I'm 27.
No.
As much as I look about 45.
It's a beard.
I'm still baby faced beneath the beard. But yeah, so 27 years old. So I've lived a fair old life,
Colourful life so far.
My tender age. Yeah.
When did you grow the beard?
So 2020, when lockdown hit, I started a job or a contract with the NHS. So I was part of their COVID response team for mental health patients. And when we started that, they turned around and said, right, you've got to shave the beard off. And at that point, I only had like sort of short, stubbly beard. So I had to go completely clean shaven for the contract. And that finished in the October of 2020. And I was like, right, I'm never shaving again. That's it. The beard is growing in its full wonder.
It's epic, mate.
And I've been growing that out ever since.
And he's born Sam the Beards. So like that's how I know you. I don't even know your surname, Sam.
Alan.
I like Sam the Beard.
It's better, isn't it?
It works well.
And so that's when that started growing. And I literally, other than an occasional sort of trim up of the sides to stop me looking a bit wild.
So you were brought up in Luton, did you?
Luton, yeah.
And what was that like growing up?
Luton's an interesting town. It's very diverse, and people only see it for the wrong reasons. Stuff like the Muslims against the EDL. It being named as the worst town in the UK. The various sort of terrorism backgrounds that have originated out of Luton. But as a town on a whole, I love it. It's where all my family, there's something like 4 or 5, maybe more than that, probably about 6 generations of my family have been brought up in Luton.
Wow.
There's me saying 5. There's only just ended 5 generations of family still alive.
Yeah.
So we've generational sort of Lutoners, and it's done me well. It's done my family well. It's made me very open to different diversities, cultures, races and religions. I've grown up with Muslim friends, with Pakistani friends, African friends, Middle Eastern friends, you name it, and everybody was in the schools together. So it's made me very open to the world and very inquisitive to the world. And for all of the bad press that Luton gets as a whole, it's not that bad of a place. I'm more than happy bringing my daughters up in Luton. It's got its issues, but as a whole, the town sticks together. They look after each other.
Nice.
And it's a very up-and-coming town, all being well, tomorrow night they beat Sunderland and we go up into the Premier League. But we'll wait and see what tomorrow brings.
Luton as well.
Yeah, you got to support your hometown, haven't you? But as a whole, it's done me good. I've got no complaints. I want to see the town thrive. I want to see it grow. And part of my bigger sort of plan is to make Luton a better place for my daughters for when they're growing up, and then eventually their kids.
How do you plan to do that?
So as a business, on the family business side, we've always worked very closely with the town as a whole. We've always tried to support charities and community, and try and we've created ourselves as a bit of a centre of pride of the town centre.
Brilliant.
The town centre's run down a lot at the minute. There's a lot of issues within the town centre itself, but we've tried to pride ourselves and show that it can be a centre for business. It's just outside of London. London is growing and expanding out, and Luton, with its transport links and its heritage and its community and its diversity, can be a fantastic place to bring up your business, and your family, and it can be a huge place for growth and development. So we've always supported the town in trying to do that. My dad was actually part of the community side of the town for a good long time, and he got redevelopment in two key areas of Luton, in the Dallow Business Partnership and then in an area called Bury Park. And at the time, that was a huge thing, because when he went into Bury Park and helped with the redevelopment of that, Bury Park was a very Asian-orientated area. And all of a sudden you had a white businessman coming in and saying, right, this can be a fantastic place for a community and for business and all the rest of it. Let's invest some money, let's bring it up, let's really turn it around. And that, again, just sort of helped my love for Luton, because that community, that was 10, 12 years ago. I can still walk into Bury Park now, and they're all
Still
like,
be the
Sam,
same.
how you doing? You're all right?
Oh,
Lovely
yeah.
to see you. How's the family? It's shown me that real community love that Luton has that a lot of people don't see. And now with the development of the football club and the fact of the stadium going into the town centre, there's huge opportunities for development in Luton. And we're trying to do everything we can to sort of help and support that and show people that
Give back.
it's a town that is worthwhile investing your time and your effort into.
I love that, mate. I love that. You know what I mean? Like doing the best you can for your town, rather than just trying to move out or
like just giving back to the community.
Yeah,
essentially. I'm quite proud of where I live, to be fair, in Enfield. I've lived in Enfield my whole life, so like if I can do things for the community as well, then I'm well up for doing stuff like that. And I think it's really important that as you go on that journey of hopefully doing well for yourself, that you find ways to give back to people in all different aspects, whether it's your local town or for people in particular, whatever that is. So that's really
100%. And then there's such an agenda pushed out now that in order to succeed in life and make something of yourself, you need to move out your hometown and disappear off and discover yourself. It's a myth. You can discover yourself. You can still see the world and do whatever you want and still stay in your hometown, still help it to get to where it can be and to discover its potential and that. So no, that's a bit about what we're trying to do with sort of Luton as a whole at the minute.
Nice, mate. Really nice.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about the mental health advocate. So can you touch base on that a bit more?
So, I mean, I've been on my own mental health battles anyway, and I'll go into that in a minute.
Okay.
But so my sort of discovery effectively of what mental health was started when I did this NHS contract, and we were working over in Ealing, supporting the hospital there. We were working with sort of 4 or 5 hospitals around the area, some which I can't name names of, but they were you're criminally mentally ill, down to your standard people who are coming in with depressions, anxieties, food disorders, and things like that. So that gave me sort of a real broad understanding of mental health as a whole. Okay. I saw lots of different things. I saw people that you would never have anticipated had the mental health issues that they did, to be really seriously unwell. So that started sort of opening my eyes up to things anyway. And then post completion of that, get into trying to get my timescales right now. Finish contract, get into 2021. Get round to the summer, and I discovered I had a 4-month-old daughter that I didn't know about.
Oh, wow.
So in discovering that, I did the typical thing, and I was like, right, Sam, time to man up, time to be an adult, like pull yourself together. How are you going to deal with this? and started trying to be a dad, started trying to be involved with my daughter, and that at the time, me and my partner Leah, we were expecting a child of our own, so it threw a massive
that's massive,
spanner
man.
in the works, and
Yeah.
you know, she was amazing, really understanding about it, but it put tension on our relationship, it put tension on our future, and
How did you find out?
believe it or not, so my granddad had just died,
Sorry
and
to hear that, mate.
we were sat around in the garden having a few beers, like a few mates had popped around to see me and all the rest of it. And one of my mates turned around and went, you know, Sam, something I need to tell you, mate. And I was like, what are you going on about? And he was like, I think you've got a kid. And I was like, no, what? And he was like, no, generally, like, I think you've got a kid. Like, look. And my daughter's mum had put a post up on social media announcing that at the time, my daughter was 4 months old at the time, that she'd had a kid, you know, previously, a few months back, and she wanted to introduce her to the world. So I sort of contacted my daughter's mum and was like, you know, what's going on? Is there something you need to tell me here? Like, or have I been left out the loop? And discovered I had a daughter.
The beans.
Wow, that is massive, man.
Yeah, it was a
blessing.
hell of
It's a
massive blessing
blessing,
in disguise.
it's a shock.
But yeah, that then led on to some real sort of turbulent times.
Okay.
And you know, at that time, I've done a few bits on this now, but I was a victim of like some real serious domestic abuse from my eldest daughter's mum, and it spiraled my mental health down anyway at this point, to the point where I was being cut off from friends. I wasn't speaking to anybody, and I'm a really social person. You know, I've got my network, I've got my family, and I'm really, really close with them. And my eldest daughter's mum was sort of driving a stake between me and everybody, spreading a lot of rumours, a lot of lies. And then with the domestic abuse that she was showing towards me as well, it spun me into a really, really bad place.
What's an example of the domestic abuse that you might have?
Domestic abuse forms into sort of 5 categories. So you've got physical, mental, emotional, sexual, and then financial. So it'd be things like she had other children, so she turned around to me just before Christmas, sort of 5 or 6 days before, and went, I can't get the kids anything for Christmas. You need to give me some money, otherwise they're going without, and I'll have to tell them Santa's not real. You know, stupid shit like that.
Yeah.
Down to things like turning around and she created a fake phone and set it up and said it was me, and was messaging herself like between the two phones and putting things like, I should have kicked you down the stairs, I should have made you abort a baby, and all this sort of shit. Then sending it to my mum saying, look what Sam's telling me, look what Sam's showing me. And then down to like the physical abuse, like she'd launch stuff at me, she'd throw stuff at me, she'd call me every name under the sun. She was so it's called coercive control, and it's a form of manipulating you into believing that you're doing wrong, and then turning everybody else against you as well. So it forms a whole agenda and story against you to push you away and isolate you, and that's what she did.
So at what point did you realise that you was in that kind of hellhole?
So I didn't at all. I was getting overwhelmed, and I was starting to really run myself down and get to the point where I couldn't cope with what was going on anymore. And it was a few days before my dad, because I'd got to the point where I wasn't at home, I wasn't around my daughter, I was couch surfing from mates to mates' houses to try and avoid being around her. And I was, getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning. I wasn't getting back until 11 o'clock at night, so that I could literally walk in the door, crash on the sofa for a couple of hours, and then get out of there. And it got to the point where I couldn't cope anymore. So my dad had messaged me one day and said, can I come around and see Paige, which is like my eldest daughter? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, what time are you coming around? He was like, I'll be around, sort of 6:30ish. I was like, okay, sound. So I got back to the house at about 6:15, and I knew he was coming, so I'd left the front door open. Walked into the house, and she'd put her kids and then mine and her daughter Paige up to bed already. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, my dad's coming around to see Paige. Like, I'm gonna go and get her. And she started teeing off at me in the kitchen, screaming and shouting, launching stuff at me, calling me every name under the sun, typical stuff. And I was stood, so if you imagine there was a wall here, I was stood here with my back to the doorway, and she was stood opposite me. And I'd heard my dad come in the door, and walk over across. So he was stood behind me, and he just stopped for a minute and listened. And she kept going, and then he walked into the doorway and was like, what on earth is going on here, in more sort of vicious wording. And she straight away, quick as anything, turned around and went, hello Lee, right, how you doing? And he was like, no, like, I've heard everything.
Oh, your dad's, yeah.
Were they seeing signs of that as well? Like,
well, no, so like me and my mum had fallen out because she'd sort of put all this lie and all this agenda across to my mum. So it was only sort of my dad and then like my nan I was still talking to. And they were the only ones that were believing what I was saying to them was going on. Good
old mum's picking the right side, eh?
So she'd just been pushed a complete agenda. And when she did find out the truth, she even now, she never forgives herself on it. I'm like, Mum, I understand why, you know, the lies were so deep.
No, you need to use it to your advantage now. Yeah.
Oh, it's got to be done, isn't it? Babysitting duties called in on a regular.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, he turned around and said, you know, you're not doing this anymore, Shannon. Like, sorry,
enough's enough.
Do not name drop there. Yeah. You're not doing this anymore. You need to go. Like, plain and simple. Enough's enough. So kicked her out basically and said, right, you've got to go. And a few weeks later, she moved out, and
with the kids.
Yeah. And we sort of agreed at the time that, right, okay, it'd be 50-50. So, you know, I'd pick my daughter up on a Friday at 4:00, say, and I'd drop her back on a Sunday, sort of thing. The first weekend I had her, picked her up.
Grief.
Got through to the Saturday morning, and my phone's just bombarded with messages. Bring my daughter back. You're not on the birth certificate. I haven't given you permission to have her. I'm going to ring the police. I'm going to say you've abducted her, all this, that, and the other.
For just no reason?
Yeah, no reason at all. And I had no choice. I wasn't on the birth certificate. I had no parental rights. So I had to drop my daughter back. And the manipulation just got even worse. And it got sort of a week down the line, and I was at the point where I just could not cope anymore. So I rang my nan up on a Tuesday night, and I was like, look, I can't deal with this anymore, Nan. Like, I've packed a bag. I've gone and bought a car. Like, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm driving off. Like, I need to go and find a new start and make a new life somewhere because I can't cope with this. And my nan was like, no, like, don't do it. You know, we'll get through this and all the rest of it. And I was like, look, I can't cope anymore. Nobody believes me. Nobody understands what's going on fully. Like, I've got to get away from this. And she was like, well, look, you know, just promise me that you'll ring me to let me know you're all right. And I was like, yeah, I will. Like, I'll get another phone. I'll ring you to let you know that I'm all right and where I'm sort of roughly am, where I'm going, what I'm doing.
Did you actually have a plan? Or?
Yeah. Like, I had a car packed, ready to go.
Like, where were you going?
I didn't know where I was going.
Really?
But I was just going to get in the car and drive.
Yeah,
like,
is that how deep it was?
Yeah, literally. I just needed to get away from it all. I couldn't cope with everything that was going on. So I had a course the next day, and for the respect to the guy that had booked me on the course, I was like, right, I'm going to go and do the course, I'll get that done, and then I'm getting in the car and I'm going. So when
did you not tell mum and dad this as well?
No,
you just told your nan.
Just told my nan, that was it.
Yeah,
she was the only one that knew. And went and did the course, and halfway through the course, my phone is buzzing, and I'm like, who on earth is ringing my phone off like this? So I've looked on my phone, and lo and behold, it was my my eldest daughter's granddad, like not my dad's, her mum's dad. And answered the phone, and he's like, do you know where Paige's mum is? And I was like, no, why? And he's like, she's not answering the phone. She's moving into one of your mates' houses today. And I was like, no, she's not. Like, what's going on here? And he was like, yeah, like, you know, she's shown me a tenancy agreement, you know, she's shown me this, that and the other. She's had a load of money off of me so that she could pay for, like, the month's rent deposit and all the rest of it.
Now she's
so
moving in with your mate.
Removals in. And
can't be.
No, she disappeared. She deleted her social media, she switched her phone off, and she went to try and start a new life up north and just abandoned her kids. So I ended up round, and this was April of 2021. So I ended up round my daughter's grandparents' house with the police, and the police gave my daughter over to me there and then and said, like, look, you know, don't know what's going on, but you're a dad, like, we've got no concerns over you, there we go. And
wow.
It was such a bizarre feeling because from that point onwards, everything started to come to light as to what had actually been going on and what I'd been going through.
That light switch.
And I rang my mum up and I said, like, look, you know, I'm on my way to yours. I've got Paige. And she was like, what do you mean you've got Paige? I was like, look, you know, this is what's happened. The police have been here. Like, I've got Paige. I'm coming back. And she was like, okay, all right, fine. So I turned up at my mum's and like all my family were there. And I remember walking in the door and just handing my daughter to my mum and saying, I need a minute, and just bursting into tears. And my cousin was like, gave me a hug and was like, what are you crying about? And I was like, this is just overwhelming.
Too much, mate.
Everybody sees the truth now for what it is. Like, you know, everything's coming to light. Finally, people see I'm not just going crazy. Like, this is actually what's been going on.
Yeah.
And that sort of began the start of what was then an 18-month court case and £20,000 worth of solicitors and barristers and all the rest of it to fight to get myself on the birth certificate and then to get custody of my daughter.
Did you never hear from?
So she turned up about 2-3 weeks later and messaged and said, I'm coming to pick Paige up. And I was like, no, that's not happening.
No way.
And by that point, we'd already started court proceedings and all the rest of it. So my solicitor was like, look, you know, you're fully within the rights to have your kid. You can offer her contact, which I did, and just say, like, it's got to be in a safe environment because at the minute, nobody knows what she's doing, why she ran away, you know, what mental state she's in and all the rest of it. So we tried to set up contact. She never turned up. Wasn't interested. And then got around to Christmas of 2021 and just texted and said, I'm not interested, have her. And that was it.
Wow.
My daughter's not seen her since then at all. But when I started all the legal proceedings and that, I had to sit there in with my solicitor and give my story and all my evidence and all my screenshots and all the rest of it. And she sat down there with me and said, you know, Sam, I'm going to recommend you go and speak to, like, you know, a coach, a therapist, a counsellor, something like that. And I was like, I don't need to do that. Like, you know, I'm over it. I had a cry. I'm happy now. I'll crack on. Yeah. And she was like, no, like, seriously. And this is, you know, to answer in the long and short your question, this is when I realised I was actually a victim of domestic abuse.
Wow.
She said, you don't realise what you've been through. Like, if this shoe was on the other foot, like,
it would have been exactly the same.
And you were a female, like, your other half would have been in prison by now. They'd have been locked up. They'd have been arrested. Harsher. You've not been believed, and I hadn't been. The police didn't believe me. Kafkas didn't believe me. You know,
your own mum didn't believe you.
And the thing is, like, you in today's society, even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it is, for a male to be a victim of domestic abuse is unheard of generally, right?
Yeah.
And most people would assume what you're talking about. You know.
And do you know what? Coming to terms with saying that, you know, I'm a bloke and I've been a victim of domestic abuse. It was horrid. Like, it was something I felt so emasculated to say. And then I was sitting there and I was like, why am I feeling like this? I was like, I'm only feeling like this because people are telling me this is how I should feel. At the end of the day, I am a victim. You know, I haven't got a victim mindset. I'm not letting it be my story and be me, but it is part of my story. Yeah. It's what's made me into who I am today. Yeah. And why shouldn't I talk about it? And that was the point there with the solicitor when she turned around and said that. And for days afterwards, I was like, no, can't do that.
So when she was being abusive, it sounds like you just generally tolerated. Was there no point in time where you just like, I'm gonna give as good as I can get, or
I'm too big of a softie.
Yeah,
you know, I hear that. I've not got a bad bone in my body like that, and I could never bring myself to do anything to retaliate.
Gradually, it was happening gradually, wasn't it?
So it just ramped up worse and worse. The longer it went on, the more she realised she couldn't get to me with the smaller things, the more intense and the more worse it got.
Yeah.
And the lies and the manipulation. We could do a whole podcast episode on the lies and the manipulation and the stories that she fed. You know, even to get to the point where. So I skipped over a massive part of the story, but to get to the point where she'd moved into my house was only because she'd faked an entire story about that she was getting moved into another property because she'd outgrown the flat that she was in. And it came to the moving day and I said, you know, I'll support my daughter, you know, I'll sort removals firm out for you so they can get you moved. That's my sort of contribution to helping you move, you know, because you're the one that's putting a roof over my daughter's head. And pulled up at the house that she was supposed to move into and someone else living there. And I was like, well, what's going on? What's going on? And she was like, oh, no, I've got confused. It's another property. And then took us on a 2-hour goose chase which eventually ended up with her saying, oh, the house has been broken into, all the doors are hanging off, all the wiring's been ripped out, and the landlord's saying we can't move in. Like,
mental.
That, looking back, I should have been looking at that then and going, whoa,
Red
what's
flags.
going on here?
Alarm
This is a
bells.
massive red flag. But when you're so emotionally invested in, right, I've got to do what's best for my kid here,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you just get blindsided by it all.
Yeah.
It's mental.
You don't see it.
No, and you think you're doing the right thing, and actually all you're doing is digging yourself into a deeper and deeper hole.
So you went to like the counselling, the therapy, and how did you?
So I point blankly refused counselling and therapy, and in the end they directed me towards a life coach, a guy called Tom Nash, absolutely fantastic guy, and it was because his whole approach was, this isn't counselling, this isn't therapy, this is just time for you to rant, for you to talk, for you to cry, for you to shout and scream, do whatever you want to do. This is time for you to get this off your chest, and then to learn to deal with it, not to compartmentalise it and to put it away, and
Suppress it,
and then one night when you're beard up out with your mates, it comes out
in
and
a different way.
you take it out on somebody else. This is time for you to deal with this and to accept what's gone on, to overcome what's gone on, to make you into a better person. So that's what I did, and I was so grateful for doing it. And that's what then led on to like the bearded coach stuff, and to like my own podcasts and bits like that as well. Just sort of promo myself on yours here.
That's
That's good, mate. It's good, you see.
That's what we're here for.
And then, isn't it?
Led me to meeting, likes yourself and Ollie and, people like that, and talking about my story, talking about what went on, because, we were chatting about it before we started, but there's such a stigma around men's mental health, and that you can't struggle and you can't, have your issues and deal with things, and it doesn't make you a man. That I was like, nah, I'm putting my story out there. I'm about as manly looking as you get.
Yeah, no, that's
like a Viking, but
that takes balls, mate. I commend that. That's good.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think you need to own these things in life. The more you pretend they're not there, the bigger they essentially are.
100%. And every single stage of life, that fact is true. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody fucks up. Own it.
So you can do something about it.
Learn from it. Grow with it. And as long as you don't make that same mistake again, then we're all human beings.
So what would you say to someone maybe going through this kind of situation now or something similar?
Talk about it. Open up. Seek the right help. There's plenty of stuff out there for men. There's so many charities out there now. There's so many people that are talking about men's mental health. There's so much support out there. There's people like Action for Dads and stuff like that are based around dads fighting for their kids.
Is that what you ended up getting in touch with?
No, I just ended up with my solicitor and my barrister and spending a whole host of money. But I was in a fortunate position where I had that financial
support,
ability to be able to do that. There's a lot of blokes out there who aren't in that position and sit there and stress and think, oh my God, what do I do? Who do I turn to, and all the rest of it.
So the support.
And these support groups, and even down to getting something like a life coach or a business coach or therapist
some
or anything,
sort of mentorship.
having somebody to turn to and to seek that advice from when you're in such a clouded mindset, having somebody that can provide you a bit of clarity is such a key thing, because the last thing you want to do is go off on a tangent where you've lost your temper and she's said something that's triggered you. That just plays into the agenda that they're pushing. It's the game,
It's the game, bro.
You need to remain that clarity and focus on what's important, and that's your kids at the end of the day. That's what you're aiming for. That's what you're fighting
picture,
for,
isn't it?
Yeah. So that's what you got to remain focused on. That's the important bit. So that's
so how old is she now?
So she's literally just had her third birthday.
No.
So that was last week. She had her
Happy
third birthday. It's scary. She's growing up far too quickly.
Yeah, they don't stay young babies long, do they? I heard.
Not at all. Not at all. And do you know what? Even for her is why I'm doing stuff like this. My partner Leah is absolutely amazing. She treats her like her own. But I've always said I'll never hide the truth from my daughter. As soon as she's of an age where she asks questions, I'll tell her the truth. And coming on with you guys, and talking about my story and pushing out in other sort of methods and outlets as well, it's all there so that she can look back on it and understand what went on
the truth.
in a more sort of easier way, rather than just sitting there and listening to me. She is listening to me, but it's across lots of different outlets. You know, she's seeing what I'm wanting to do and what I'm trying to do. And it hopefully it's just going to create that bit more understanding for her, so she doesn't grow up confused as to what happened.
So.
Yeah, it'll be something that she'll have to work on processing herself, right? I think, you know, we all go through different hardships ourselves in our lives, and that's kind of her path to walk down now, where she'll have to kind of grow through it herself.
Oh, massively.
And I think a lot of the time, these hardships, although they're a part of who you are, they don't necessarily define you in its entirety. So you get to still be whoever you want to be, and the fundamental part is that it doesn't end up consuming you.
Exactly that. And that's the key thing. And that's why talking about it and being open about it is so important. If you don't and you bottle it up and you let it consume you, it creates you.
Yeah.
If you don't and you're open about it and you talk about it, yeah, it forms part of your journey, but that is as far as it goes. It doesn't stop you defining who you are, you know. And with her, she's going to grow up with abandonment issues. I mean, you know, it's supposed to be that the one person that is always there, is always constant, and is always reliable in your life is your mum.
Yeah,
you know, and don't get me wrong, that leaves onto a whole other agenda of, you know, a very female-based upbringing of, you know, the woman stays at home and that whole sort of agenda. But that is the way we're taught as society. Your mum is always there. Your mum is always constant. She's always there to support you.
They say mother in the eyes of the child means God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I do get that.
And there's the old saying as well, when you marry a woman, you marry her mum. You know, because girls are never supposed to split away from their mum. Being a young girl and all of a sudden realising, oh, my mum abandoned me. My mum left me. What happened there? What went on?
Yeah, why?
You know, and I've always very much been the thing that I will tell my daughter what went on, but I also won't push my own agenda onto my daughter. My daughter will be told, you know, mummy went because she was ill, and that's the plain and simple of it.
Yeah, fair
For
enough.
her to be in the situation that she was and to do what she did, you're not of a sound mind.
No,
you know, there's something going on upstairs that's causing you to make those decisions, that's causing you to act those ways.
Absolutely, bro.
So
the problem that you've got is unfortunately in life, not everybody works on themselves.
No, exactly.
They just accept themselves for who they are, and they don't evolve, they don't grow, and that can be quite toxic, because as the world is changing, if you don't change with it, you generally get left behind.
Oh, 100%. You know, we've had conversations before about it, about me and you as characters that we are, that you always try to help build people up. And the unfortunate fact is there's a lot of people in this world that don't want to change. They don't want to build. They don't want to progress.
Yeah, and what they're trying to do is essentially bring people down to their world, because it's comfort. It's that I'm happy staying here. So what my ultimate aim is to bring as many people around me as possible to reinforce what I'm doing is 100% the right thing.
No, exactly.
So while some people in life are trying to pull people up, other people are saying, no, come over to my happy place. That might not be fit for purpose, even for yourself, let alone for someone else.
Oh, and there's so many that do it, you know, so many times. Put the dad cap aside for a minute, you know, just in business. Being a young businessman that's trying to do something, that's trying to develop my life, trying to better my future, my kids' future, my family's future. So many times, people, you're wrong, what are you doing? You know, you're not doing this enough, you're not doing that enough, you're not in the pub enough, you're not with your friends enough, you know, you're doing wrong.
So many opinions.
Yeah, everybody's. It's like they're saying it. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one.
That's right.
True, bro.
You know.
Do you know what I think? The other thing is that you have to not look for validation from other people. You've got to validate yourself.
Oh, 100%.
And keep reminding yourself what's actually important to you, because that leads to your ultimate happiness anyway. The more you keep doing what everyone else says, the more you're living in their world, but that doesn't resonate with what your ultimate agenda is, let's say.
Oh, definitely. It's something that I've always been a person that's looked for validation from other people. I've always been terrible for it.
A lot of us have, I think, growing up.
Same, bro.
Yeah.
And the last few years, I've really had to sort of give myself a hard lesson of, you're never going to please everybody, Sam. So please the ones that it's important to, you know, my kids, my parents, you know, grandparents, my brother, like my partner, like, make sure that you're doing the right things for the right people. Anybody else that doesn't want the best for you is going to just hold you back, and you know, you're not going to please them. You're not going to make them happy. Even the business side of things, you're never going to make every customer 100% happy.
100%.
And I've had to do it to the point where I'm like, right, I know my team have gone in there, they've done the best job they can, they've exceeded what they should have done.
The expectations.
Yeah. Regardless of whether that client is happy or not, they've gone over and above, they've done the job, you know, it's to a 110% level.
Yeah.
That is it.
And then generally what this is around is that customers or people in general have their own agenda.
Yeah.
Can I get money off this job? Like, if I play a game big enough, I can get something out of this beyond what was actually agreed originally. And that's really hard to kind of navigate.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, they've in the back of their mind, they're just looking about what else they can get in addition to what they've already been given.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Exactly that. People are always out for their own demise at the end of the day. Not everybody's like that, but there's a lot of people in the world that are. And if they can mess you about and pull you down to get to what they want to achieve, then that's what they'll do.
And so what have you had any kind of specific moments in business where people have played this agenda against you, where you're doing a job for them, and then all of a sudden it gets twisted? And
I knew you were going to drop this one. Yeah, so I went bankrupt in 2018. Lost my business at the time. Lost absolutely everything, which again leads into the mental health story. But at the time, that was all for the company that I'd been subbing into's own agenda. You know, I'm not going to name drop and all the rest of it, but it'd been a huge contract, absolutely massive. And at the time, I was a lot younger, I was a lot more naive, and I didn't see the red flags again. You know, it's great in hindsight looking back and understanding things, but again, that comes back to the lessons. But they dragged me along. They'd started losing money because the project had been delayed due to something out of everybody's control. And as soon as that project started costing them money, they sat there and thought, oh, what can we do? Oh, well, we'll sting the little man. Yeah. And they dragged it out to a point where they knew I was financially ruined unless they paid me that invoice there and then turned around and went, yep, see us at court then. What? We know you can't afford to take us there, so off you pop. And that was it. It folded the company.
Oh, wow.
You know, people are very agenda driven. You know, they especially in business, there's no morals, there's no friends. No. You know, and if it's not always the case, but a lot of times, and I've learnt that the hard way and the expensive way. And if somebody can screw you over to profit themselves, then
they'll
do
it.
That's
so how
what
did you
do.
deal with it? How did it make you feel when?
At the time when it went under, so that was my first sort of stint into the building game. Okay. And at the time when it went under and the business folded, I was like, never again. Not going into building again. Absolutely hate it. It's awful. It's horrendous. How long were you in it
up till then? Sorry.
So I'd been in building at that point about 3.5, 4 years.
Okay, so time invested.
Started out with absolutely zero building knowledge. Mm-hmm. Built a company up that was turning over like 1.5 million at the time. Wow. In the space of about 18 months. Really and truly, like looking back on it, was sprinting before I could even crawl.
Okay.
But you know,
that's how real growth.
Yeah, that's exactly.
How you've got to push the.
If you don't take the risks, you don't get the rewards.
No, it's true.
And
I think one thing that I learned quite earlier on doing business, diversify yourself.
Yeah.
Never put all your eggs in one basket.
No. George speaks about it, doesn't he? He says the 30% rule. And if a client starts getting more than 30% of your total income, then you need to get another client.
Don't tell anyone this. Get in trouble.
You know, but it's true. And looking back on that now, you know, just with that key piece of knowledge, I'd never put all my eggs into the basket that I did with that one company. They had me over an absolute barrel. You know, down to, you know, valuations, payment terms, absolutely everything. I had no control whatsoever. And the day that we eventually pulled off the contract and walked away, the directors turned up and they said, yeah, good luck, we'll see you in court. We know you're out of money. We know you've got enough money to pay the boys, and then that's it.
And do you know what? Actually, that's also like the reverse of what sometimes happens, even in the corporate world, is say if a employee puts a claim against the company, depending on their case, they'll either pay that person off because it wouldn't end up being worth the money it would take to go to court.
Oh wow!
So and I used to see it when we was in the corporate company. There'd be all these like legal things happening, and and you knew people had an agenda, but ultimately it goes back to this: what can I get out of the situation? Especially if there's like a grievance going on or employee issues and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. In the end of the day, with my situation, the company went from, you know, having lost at the time probably about 40 grand, so all of a sudden they weren't paying a 200 grand bill, but the work had been done.
Yeah, so
they quids in.
Yeah,
they were happy, you know, and so yeah, that stopped me first sort of stint in building, and then from there I was like, no, never again, not doing it. I don't want to be a builder. I hate it. It's a shit industry. Don't want to be in it. So I was a bit down in the dumps and feeling sorry for myself. I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Don't know what's going to happen. My mate sort of was like, no, come on, get up. We're going to do this contract. And at the time, I had my door supervisor license, so like my security badge. Nice. And he was like, yeah, we're going to do this event down in London. So I was like, all right, sweet. Right, give it a go, see what it's like. So did the first sort of instalment of the event there, and then was approached by the director of the company, who said, look, you know, I've seen the way you handle things. I've seen how you are as a person. I want you to come on as my one of my supervisors. So started going on with him, and then quickly grew my way through the business there and ended up being his like third in command, basically. Man. And again, I can't name names because I'm sure you'll want some stories and that from it. But the event we were running in London every year, seasonal event, absolutely huge, millions of people through the door, and we were running teams of, you know, sort of 120 staff up to hundreds of staff every sort of day, and it was insane. But it gave me so much more of an understanding of people, which was really interesting. It shows a lot of the darker side of people, but it also showed the good side as well, and then how to manage people, how people worked, you know, how they developed, and
psychological
it
side of
was
things.
Insane. You've probably heard it a couple of times, but when people say, oh, crowds are water, and you sit there and think, what's that mean? Yeah. Crowds will literally move like water. The path of least resistance, the path that's most open is where they'll go, where they'll push, where they'll flow to. And it works, you know, 100%. We had a massive situation kick off, and it could have gone south very, very easily. And that saying pops into my head, people are like water, they flow, they move. I was like, right, okay, let's open up that area, let's close off that area, let's, you know, shut that area off. Yeah. And it just flowed. And within 20 minutes, a situation that was like going to put people's lives at risk was dealt with. And I was sat there like, how have I just managed to do that? Like,
because everyone just wants an easy life, don't they?
What's going on there? Like, and it was insane. Yeah, there's a little quote for you. But it does. It gave me a good understanding of how people work in general. You know, you offer somebody a path of least resistance in life, in business, and anything, they'll take it. Yeah. You know, they will. So yeah, I was in security then for loads of years, and then eventually got approached by a builder I used to work with back in the day, and he was like, look, you know, will you come on? Can you start doing my sales and my management side of things, start project management? So no, this was a company called A. Lee and Sons. Okay. So started working for him, doing a few bits and pieces for him, helped him with some really big contracts and that. We built a couple of multi-million-pound houses, and then sort of was like, look, you know, I'm ready. I'm going to sort of drop off on my own now. I'm going to start doing my own thing again. Started going off, was doing some general bits of like landscaping and bits like that, and then was approached by Dean, who said, look, you know, me and Dean at this point had been friends about 12 years, and he'd asked me when my first company went under, he was like, look, you know, I want to do a partnership with you, I want to work with you, you know, we can make this work, we can build this up. And I said to him, look, I'm ready, I don't want to jump back into it. But yeah, when I went back out on my own, Dean was like, look, is the time right, are you ready? And I was like, yeah, right, let's do it. Let's give it a go.
Surprising you even came back from it, to be fair.
Oh, massively.
When you get stung like that hard in the end, you think to yourself, nah, do you know what, this ain't for me, this game. But
yeah, no.
But your family was...
my granddad always instilled in me, you know, you take your losses, you stick them on your shoulder and you carry on again, you know. Nice. He made plenty of losses in business, but as long as you learn from that loss, then it's not a loss. It's an expensive lesson.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and that's the way I've taken it. And it's my previous lessons have formed the way that I've structured the company a lot more now. They've formed how me and Dean work a lot more, and our relationship and how we structure things and like the transparency between us. You know, there's so many people out there that give you horror stories about partnerships.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. To be fair, and you get on really well, do you?
Me and Dean get along like house on fire. You know, we do get along really well, but we're also very, very transparent with each other. You know, if anybody's got any doubts about anything at all, we'll raise it with each other straight away. You know, we're constantly communicating with each other, and that's such a key thing because, you know, you start having any doubts over who you're working with, then straight away that trust and that relationship's gone. It's eradicated,
down, doesn't it?
And at that point, it's just a slippery slope downhill. And that's one thing we've said. You know, if there is ever any doubt over anything that the other person's done, we'll just sit down, we'll discuss it, and we'll whether we disagree or agree with what the other person has done, that's the decision that's been made. Support it. You know,
talk it out as well. It's important.
Yeah, you form like as a team between the two of you, or three, or however many's involved in that partnership, and you work together on it. And yeah, you know, Harpenden Builders has just grown and grown from there. And you know, the projects we've got lined up, the things we've got down the pipeline that we're going to be doing, it's just colossal.
Nice.
Well, I'm going to be nearing him one day. Nearly at the level of George. A few years down the line.
Yeah, God willing, anyway. And so you started the Bearded Coach.
Yes.
Tell us about the Bearded Coach.
So the Bearded Coach leads back to my mental health journey and everything else. So after I'd won the court case and won custody of my daughter, I was like, right, I want a platform where I can put out positivity. I can let men know it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have mental health struggles. And also somewhere where I can talk openly about, you know, the court case and about how I reached like custody of my daughter and the steps I had to jump through and the hoops I had to go through, you know, the money that I had to spend, because it's such a grey area. Nobody knows, like, you can't predict how much something's going to cost when it comes to a court case. But
how much did it cost, out of curiosity?
It was just under 20 grand.
Was it?
Yeah. It's a huge amount of money, but it's an investment in my daughter.
100%, worth every penny.
Oh, 100%. I never want to do it again, but I would do it over again if I had to, sort of thing. But there's nothing out there. And when I was out looking, you know, because you do, when you're sitting there and you're going through a legal battle, or, you know, you're trying to do something, the internet's about, you sit there
rabbit hole,
scrolling.
And so much information.
Yeah, there's too much.
And there is. You just get bombarded and swamped with all this information that's out there, and you see 100 forms and your CAFCAS and your Section 7s and all this sort of stuff, and you're like, what on earth is all this? It's just numbers and letters. Like, where am I going with all of this?
That's where you got to let the solicitors just take care of it, just pump the money into it.
But even with that, you can end up spending so much money for no reason. I was paranoid as anything when I was going through this with my daughter. I was like, right, am I doing the right thing? You know, trying to validate myself. Am I a good enough father? Is this the right thing for my kid? You know, what do I need to do to be a better dad? And I'd end up ringing my solicitor up, saying, right, do I need to be doing this course? Do I need to be doing that course? And my solicitor would answer, don't get me wrong, but every time I pick that phone up, 250 quid. Yeah. 250 quid. 250 quid.
Wow.
But I'd probably answer the phone for 250 quid as well, to be fair.
Exactly that. And you end up just rambling away to your solicitor for ages on stuff you don't actually need to.
Okay.
So I was like, right, what can I do? How can I put something out there? How can I put a platform that's going to help dads and show dads, you know, sort of routes you could take and all the rest of it. And the Bearded Coach is still very much in development as to where I want it to be as an end sort of goal. But
it started off based on what happened to you.
Yeah,
and
really good, mate. It's important.
There's sort of a 4-stage process to the Bearded Coach, and we're in stage 1 at the minute. And stage 1, which goes in parallel then with the book, is about, you know, coming to terms with your own battles and understanding your own battles, and then bettering yourself from that, getting yourself in the right mindset to be able to level up.
Okay.
Which forms into the Bearded Journal and all the rest of it. So that was what originally inspired me to start that. I've been a bit lax on it at the minute, but that's where business, dad life has sort of taken over.
Yeah.
And as much as it's something I'm wanting to do, I've got to still remember it is a hobby, if more than anything, you know. And my other priorities in life do sort of have to take forefront. But I've got huge places where I want to take this, and I want to build it in the end to be somewhere where, you know, not even just men, but anybody can turn to and, you know, reach out and say they're struggling with something in life, and it will have a network of various, you know, coaches, professionals, therapists, whatever there is that we can like recommend them onto and say, right, you know, there we go, here's this person, we can connect you up with them, they're going to do that, this person's going to deal with that side of your problem, this person's going to assist you with that one, but trying to keep sort of costs down, because especially in today's climate, you know, money is scarce and it's hard to come by, you know. So that sort of forms what the Bearded Coach is all about. And then I've got 4 books that I'll be releasing over the next sort of 4 years.
There's one you've already released.
So one I've already released, which is the Bearded Journal, so which is a daily journal. So you know, it sets a routine. So one thing as men that we're terribly bad for is having a fixed routine. You know, getting up in the morning, you know, taking a shower, brushing your teeth, having a breakfast. How many times have you rushed out the door and forgotten to eat? You know, because you're like, oh God, I've got all this to do today, that to do today. You know, even down to simple things like get up and make your bed. Like, how many times do you not do that because you're in too much of a rush? So, you know, that's the first sort of stage of the Bearded Journal. Then it's got about setting your daily affirmations, so, you know, and your daily gratitudes. So saying, right, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. This is what I'm going to achieve from today. That's what I'm going to achieve from today. I am powerful. I can do this. I can achieve this. You know, I'm worthy of this meeting today. And then your gratitudes of, you know, even simple things. There's so many things in life that we're so lucky to have that we overlook. You know, London is known as one of the most miserable cities in the world. How often do you get onto the train and somebody smiles at you or says hello? Something like that is big in today's society. Somebody says, oh, you're right, hello, you're right. Smiles at you. That's a big thing. Be grateful for that.
Yeah, you can make someone's day with a smile, mate.
Just walking out, especially after the weather we've been having recently, and the sun's beaming. Something to be grateful for. People look to be grateful for, you know, huge things, big amounts of money, you know, success, wealth, and all the rest of it, and they forget the little things in life that you can be happy about, you can be grateful for, because somebody else hasn't got those things. You know, somebody else doesn't get to live the life you live. As much as you're looking on social media at all the, you know,
how amazing everyone
the
else's life
influencers that are out there.
Perspective, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly that.
But people don't know. That's another thing. People are unaware of the fact that there's so many things to be grateful for, and that it's an actual practice.
No,
you know, the more you're aware of it, and the more you can practice it daily, you do start to shift.
Oh, 100%.
It's scientifically proven. It's in all the spiritual texts over the years, the centuries. So yeah, gratitude is really important, man. I love what you're doing there, bro. So
massively. And then there's a section in there as well about journaling and writing down what you've done over the day. You know, what you're planning on doing in the morning, and then what you've achieved at the end of that day. But the sort of final stage of the book of that one was to start to get people to hold themselves more accountable, because self-accountability is huge, and self-accountability is going to be the thing that drives you forward, that makes you successful, that makes you achieve your goals. So it starts off to begin with. So at the end of week 1, there's like an accountability page, and you know it tracks you and says, right, okay, what have you achieved? How have you been mindset-wise, focus, you know, positivity, mental strength, things like that. How did you start the week? How have you ended the week? You know, what are you taking forward to the next week's? And then 2 weeks further on from that, there's another accountability page, and it goes on and on and on. So at the end of the book, you've got like a whole month that you've gone without that check-in page. And as sort of like silly and trivial it seems, it works because you've got something there that's holding you accountable, but before you know it, you're holding yourself accountable.
Yeah,
I think what it does allow you to do as well is be very conscious about what's going on in your world, understanding who you are, what you are, why you are, and then what it allows you to do is see that in its entirety, and then you've got an opportunity to change things,
to adjust,
redefine, grow, whatever that looks like.
Exactly that. Everybody's different in life. Everyone's got their own goals and their own achievements. You know, as long as that's what you're wanting to achieve and that you're grateful for it and you're proud of it, then that's all that matters. You know,
it's epic, mate. It's epic.
So that's book number 1.
So tell me about the story. 'Cause I know you've started conversing with Dapper Laughs, have you?
Yes, I was been chatting with him a little bit.
How did that happen?
So I can't think what it's called now. It was when you like mirror one of them, I'm terrible with social media, absolutely terrible. But I mirrored one of his videos and spoke about my context and my sort of opinion on it, and it picked up a fair bit of traction.
What was he talking about? Can you?
He was talking about dads and like the pressure that you have on being a dad, and you know, getting up in the morning and feeling like you've not achieved enough for your kids, you're not spending enough time with your kids and all that sort of stuff. And then generally about men and, you know, how society puts so much pressure on us. You know, we're expected to do this, we're expected to be this, we're expected to be understanding, you know, the whole thing about masculinity being so downgraded now and downplayed, and you're not allowed to be a man and all the rest of it. So I took that and put my own perspective, my own twist onto it, and it got quite a bit of traction.
Nice.
And then me and him ended up chatting away and talking from there.
Did he?
And,
Imagine that.
you know, he's somebody that, watching his growth and his development as a person has been inspirational.
Do you know what? I remember he went through some serious hardships himself. Didn't he get cancelled at one point a long time ago?
Yeah, he got cancelled. What was it? ITV he was on, wasn't it? That he got cancelled, and he did his interview with them. And, you know, he was somebody that his career took a real sort of spiral and a real like downturn. And he sort of pulled himself together and was like, no, I'm not letting this define me. I'm not letting this be me. And, you know, I've booked tickets already for his Menace to Sobriety tour.
Nice.
Because I just think he is really, really inspirational in the route that he's taken and the positivity he's putting out there for men's mental health. He's putting his hands up saying, I'm not perfect, I've had my issues, but this is what I'm doing now, you know, and this is what other men can do.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, he's absolutely killing it right now.
Oh, massively.
Well. Like, he's doing really, really well. So, and to kind of use that platform to spread a positive message as well is also like a big responsibility to take on, because I keep referring to this, that, you know, whenever someone goes through hardships in life, to take on that responsibility then to help other people behind you is a big thing.
Oh, hugely.
And nobody owes anyone anything in this life, by the way, but the sheer fact that they want to give it back because they know the impact and pain they had to go through, like, is you know, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, massively. It's the old saying that everyone's got a book in them. You know, everyone's got a story. You can learn from everybody in life. You just got to want to listen. And for people wanting to go out there and put their stories out there and help others, it's amazing.
So what, you're going to do a collab with...
I wish. I think that's probably a little bit off the cards at the minute.
See you on stage with him.
I've got
on his next tour.
Build my following and that one first for that.
You never know. You never know what happens
He's the
next.
sort of guy I'd love to be sort of collabing on, because I just think what he's doing is brilliant. And it's really nice to see, again, somebody that's seen as such a masculine figure, a man's man. You know, he's into his boxing, he's into his training and all the rest of it.
Because his issue was that he's been sober now for quite a while.
Yeah.
Where before he obviously drank a lot and has probably done a lot of other things, but he's also, you know, he's trying to spread that positive message of essentially you don't need all of these things.
No, exactly.
I think because what generally happens is people might use them as coping mechanisms. It ends up leading into other gateways of other things that, you know, we don't end up wanting to do or end up regretting as well.
Whatever trauma you get in life, I don't believe you ever fully overcome. You just find a way to cope with it.
Live with it.
You find a healthy, well, not necessarily in every case, but certainly in like my case and in a lot of people I know's case, you find a healthy way to cope with it, a healthy way to live with it and to overcome it.
Well, the key is to identify it first, to know it's there in its existence, because the more you pretend it's not real or it never happened, or then the more it just lies dormant in you, and then I think you mentioned it earlier, it literally just comes out in all other ways.
There's so many cases that you hear of, you know, people saying, oh, he was such a nice guy, I don't know why he blew up that day. Well, he blew up that day because of everything else that he'd been compartmentalising for so long that he'd buried away and had just eaten away at him. And when he did blow,
he blew.
You know, that was what happened. And, you know, you talk about men's suicide rates, absolutely through the roof. Why are they through the roof? Well, because men don't tend to deal with things. They don't tend to talk about things. We compartmentalise, we hide away, put on a brave face, put on a smile, turn to drink, drugs, you know, whatever it is. And eventually that spirals out of control.
It catches up with you. Yeah. So what's the second book?
So the second book is part of what the podcast is about. So the second book I wanted to do as a bit of a grow up and glow up guide. So it's short stories of successful people.
I like that.
So that's why I've got people like the likes of Luke. I've got a guy called Wayne on. I've got a couple of other people, like a sports star that I've got coming on as well. And it's all stories, like the podcast as in general is about challenges they've faced, how they've overcome them, and what they've done since that challenge. So the second book is going to be about that and about the challenges they've gone through, how they've overcome it, but then with some of like the actual science behind it and the psychological side of how you can build that sort of mindset to overcome that. So that's the second book. Third book, I'm still sort of working on different ideas and how I want to function that and what the purpose of that I want to be is. And then the fourth book falls into Once I'm 30, which is getting ever gradually closer.
Coming.
The fourth book I want to do is a survival guide from teens
Campfires,
to 30.
Not
So,
that sort of survival guide.
Like
but
a scout survival guide, but for life and
Yeah.
for men. Because, there is loads of challenges I've overcome in life. And even with my own challenges, I've still been more fortunate than what some others may have been. But there's a lot that people can, learn and understand.
What to do in this moment, how to deal.
And I think especially with our school system in this country, you leave school at 16, if you go on to college, then you leave school at 18 or whatever it is now, and you're just thrown out into this big wide world with no actual clue as to what to do, where to go, how to manage your money, how to manage your life, what not to do and to do with women, what not to do and do with drink,
No life skills.
how to build a career, like nothing. We're taught so many things of...
Is there even... I don't even know if do they even
Taught to
talk
be a
about mental
slave,
health at schools yet? I don't even know if that's a thing yet for...
Nah,
No, they probably don't, do they?
I don't think so, mate.
I don't know.
There wasn't
No, apparently they do over
Not-
there.
Not
Like,
at our time, they weren't.
no,
was
they
it?
definitely weren't in our
Definitely.
time. They didn't.
At school, I had like a mentor, so because I was a bit naughty.
Oh yeah, but they generally looked after the naughty kids a lot more than.
the special ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, they don't care, mate.
I actually remember
no one
like with
cares.
the naughty kids, they used to put them all in a class together, and skip these other because obviously they'd be disruptive to the main classes, but they all got to have fun in these other classes.
Mate, there's kids that you know they're naughty and teachers get told, I just let him get away with that. It's not worth the headache, or his parents are a bit mad. Let's let him get away with it. I know that firsthand.
Yeah, really.
So just get it's easier to just let them do what they want sometimes.
Yeah, I just don't think they. You're 100% right. Like in schools, it is all about curriculums. It's literally about English, maths, science. A lot of these things aren't helpful in the real world. I mean, to some extent they do help, but not for a young person who hasn't got a clue what they want to do in life.
There's lessons in biology and stuff, about frogs. I've never used in my life. Why did I need to know about frogs? Why didn't you teach me about mortgage rates? Why didn't you teach me about banking and savings, finances, investments? Why didn't you teach me about law and things like that? There's so many more valid lessons you could learn as a kid. And I think, looking back on my own life, if I could have sat there at 18 years old and had a book that was there, a survival guide from 18 to 30, and sat there and read through it and gone, shit, is this what life is to come? I'd have changed lots of decisions like that I made in life. I'd have been a lot more adult about certain things.
Mature,
I'd have started tucking away money earlier on in life.
Man.
I'd have started looking at investments more. So many more different routes I would have taken, and that's why I want to do it.
That's fantastic.
There's not enough out there for when kids leave school to be able to sit there and go, this is the real world. This is what you've got coming. Prepare. Get yourself ready for it. Keep learning. Keep discovering. Keep looking at things. Keep investing in things. Keep saving. Keep bettering yourself. Because kids just don't know what to do when they come out of school nowadays.
I found as well, I became most liberated from my problems when I started becoming more responsible.
Yeah.
Responsible for myself and responsible for others, because it was overcomplicated for me before. that responsibility. It was always, oh, you know, I don't feel good and all stuff like this. And then all of a sudden, when you start actually taking responsibility for your actions, accountability that you spoke about, your whole mindset shifts, and then you're more focused on a more positive outcome than you are on what you don't have, what you do have, like all of this kind of negative self-talk. You know, you're just like determined to kind of help people, help yourself, help others.
And you get your power back, isn't it?
Exactly that. Exactly that. So that's sort of like the final stage of the Bearded Coach books, as to what I want to do, because I think it's so valid, and it's having the right message put out. You know, social media is a very dangerous thing, and there's a lot of dangerous characters on social media now that are putting negative perspectives out onto young minds that are very easily manipulated, and they're telling them completely the wrong thing, putting completely unrealistic views and ideologies behind them, and it's dangerous. You know, so having that right, positive, actual like useful message for kids that are growing up still and discovering and developing, I think is so important.
Very important, mate. So
Yeah, the thing is, you know, we spoke about that earlier, about everyone wants to some degree some level of control. So you've got all of these different people having different views and opinions, and rather than finding an equal ground where everyone can sit, everyone's too busy trying to climb on top of each other about, no, I'm right and I'm right and I'm, you know, and I think this is the issue, that there's a misconception that actually what works for you can work for somebody else, but it might not work for somebody else, and that's just what it is.
And that's why I very much want to label it as, you know, survival guide, self-help guide. It's not a story to take. It's not a route to take. You've got to discover your own. It's some help. It's some assistance. It might answer some questions for you, but you've got to go out there and discover who you are as a person. You've got to plan your own route. You know, set your own goals. Goal setting, such an important thing.
See, what I like, by the way, is that everybody has a different view and opinion of something, and I'm very open to listening to every single view, because what it does is it gives me such a broader view span of then what my options are, to then make my own choice, because everything we do, we make our own choice, regardless of if there's a pushing agenda or somebody's trying to influence. We are all responsible and accountable for our own actions. Like, it's never, I remember that kind of young early phase when I was really young, and it was like, trying to blame my dad or something like that for something. But as I've got older, I've actually found out that, you know, you can, everything you do, you are fully responsible for every step, and you've got to deal with that in the positive ways and the negative ways. You know, whether it is you trying to help guide people through this life, or whether you're just trying to suppress people while you grow yourself. You know, there's a consequence to everything.
Exactly that. And the fact that you've got that opinion is, you know, is credit to where you are today. You know, if you didn't have that mindset of, I'm gonna, you know, listen, actually, I'll take a bit of that, I'm gonna form my own opinion on this whole subject. If you didn't have that mindset, you wouldn't have achieved where you are today, and you wouldn't be in the position you are.
Well, dad always taught me, you know, take the best from people and disperse the bad. Like, when you learn from people, don't learn everything. Learn what resonates with you, and you think, do you know what, I really like that. But they, you know, if they've got these other kind of baggage themselves,
don't hold on to it.
Don't inherit them problems as well, because then you've got to go through the same journey, the process.
No, exactly that.
That's good, man. It's about having the right mindset and the right attitude as well, isn't it? Attitude is everything. Then you can approach it. There's a saying: if your attitude's right, the facts don't count. You know, because most facts are just opinions anyway.
Exactly.
So if your attitude's right, you know, you can get through a lot of stuff, and what you're doing is amazing, mate. So
thank you very much.
I'll definitely get a few copies of them.
Definitely.
But do we have to grow a beard, like a much bigger beard, before
you're good.
we qualify for the Bearded Coach? No, it's open to everyone.
It's open to everyone. The Bearded Coach stuff was just like the beard side of it was just to fall in with the whole thing of wanting to increase masculinity and make men feel like, yes, you can be masculine, but you can still cry. I'm fucking terrible for it. I'll happily blub at a film. I'm not bothered.
Do you know what? Like, as long as you're happy, it doesn't even matter anyway. Like, it goes back round to this. Like, your priorities are your family, your people. They're all that matter. And as long as they accept you for who you are, then that's all that counts.
They'll rip into me for it.
Yeah,
You soppy shit. What are you doing? But they love me for me.
Yeah,
you know,
good old family members.
I am who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
That's the best way to be. And I know Sam's got one final question.
Yeah,
this is like his signature thing now at the
Nice
podcast.
one, George. Nice one. So, what would your message be to the world if you had one?
My message be to the world: be true to yourself. Be who you are. Understand that you can always grow. You can always achieve. You can always be better as a human being, and just be kind to others. Really.
Nice.
It's nice and
It's
simple.
important.
Nothing too complicated, but
Very important.
I think you do that, and the world's a whole lot better place.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, thank you for coming on today,
No
Sam.
worries, gents. Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Likewise, mate. You're a legend. So,
And we look forward to seeing what happens next.
absolutely.
There's plenty more to come still.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Nice one.